10 reasons why successful people with prominent profiles are labeled as scams on the internet. Now, as we've gone into the social age, more and more people are using the internet and social media, channels like YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, to market their products and services and also to build a personal brand. And as that's starting to happen more and more, a lot of people are becoming highly skeptical and wondering if these entrepreneurs, coaches, trainers, mentors, and advisors who are building a profile online, are they all legit, or are majority of them scams? Now, before I go into the 10 reasons why successful people with prominent profiles are being labeled scams, I do want to acknowledge the fact that in every industry there are people who do not have substantial expertise and are simply very good at promoting and marketing themselves and creating visibility for themselves. But when it actually comes to delivering a quality product or service, they fail. And so this breeds a lot of fear into people, and what they start to do is they start to look at everybody who is building a profile or promoting a product or a service on the internet as a scam. For as long as industries have been around, there's always been people who have done the wrong thing by people. There are dodgy doctors, there are corrupt politicians, there are corrupt bankers, and in every industry you will hear about people that just don't do the right thing ethically and morally by people and do not work in the best interest of their customers, prospects, and clients. However, is it fair to label an entire industry or label every single person that represents an industry as a scam just because 5, 10 or 15% of people in every industry don't do the right thing? The first reason why a lot of successful people with prominent profiles on the internet are labeled scammers is simply because the vast majority of public has not been able to get their head around the fact that in the social age, people can pursue careers and occupations outside of the conventional professions like becoming a doctor or a lawyer or things like that. So they just have not been able to adapt to the new world where people like advisors, mentors, coaches, consultants, and speakers can make a very good living simply by promoting their products and services on the internet. The second reason why a lot of people will label prominent and successful people on the internet as scammers is because people actually have negative beliefs around money themselves. A lot of people just don't like people who make money because they have been conditioned right from the very beginning to see money as evil and wealthy people or successful people as greedy and arrogant. So this bias always comes across when they see somebody on the internet, they see an ad on Facebook, or they see somebody's video on YouTube. All of this subconscious beliefs just rises to the surface, and the person ends up feeling this intense hatred. Even though they don't know anything about this person and they haven't taken the time to research the person's background, they get overcome by their own emotions and they end up labeling the other person as a scammer. The third reason why a lot of people will label people on the internet as scams is because they have negative associations with promotion and marketing. You see, they are so conditioned to be accepting of the promotion and marketing that big corporations do, but when it comes to an individual or a small business that's also trying to make money, a lot of the public will get really upset because they don't want somebody to be promoting and marketing themselves. And the issue is because of the way they've been conditioned, they see self-promotion and marketing as very negative. And unfortunately, this is also a byproduct of having negative money beliefs. The fourth reason why anyone that's trying to build a profile or make a difference on the internet is labeled a scammer is because a lot of people don't understand why anybody would want to make a difference and not just live in survival and only make enough money for themselves. People don't understand that there are a lot of people who are driven by the need to make a bigger impact and a bigger difference around rather than just making money for themselves or just earning a salary. And when you're in survival, you can't understand this because all of your focus and attention is on just making enough money for yourself to put a roof over your head, to pay your bills, to put food on the table. So when you're in that scarcity and survival mindset, you just cannot understand why anybody in the world would want to make a bigger difference. The fifth reason why a lot of people end up assuming that anyone that's on the internet that's growing a brand or selling their products or services is a scammer is because they're misguided about the concept of humility. You see, when we think that a person should be humble, we automatically assume that that person should never talk about themselves, they should never promote themselves, they should never promote their products and services. And the issue is that they don't really understand what humility means. Humility doesn't mean thinking less of yourself. Humility actually means thinking of yourself less. And anybody out there who is building a brand and a product or a service and is trying to impact lives, by definition, is more humble than the person who is only thinking about themselves. I know that a lot of people have been conditioned to think that humility means diminishing yourself. But when you diminish yourself, you don't serve anybody. You don't even serve yourself. The sixth reason why a lot of people get angry when they see somebody on the internet promoting themselves is because simply they have unresolved psychological and emotional issues themselves. They're probably underachieving and not getting any results, so the envy kicks in, and when they see somebody else doing better than them, especially because they are stuck maybe in a dead-end job, or maybe they're not making enough money, when they see somebody else doing better than them, all this envy rises to the surface, and it's the easiest thing to do is to say, hey, you're a scammer. And what they're basically saying is, I don't understand how you can make money. I don't understand how you can be so successful. And because I don't understand it, the easiest thing for me to do is to damage your brand and destroy your reputation by calling you a scammer. You see, this is how a lot of people work, and they operate like that. They're consumed by their emotions. They do not apply any critical thinking. They do not do any analysis. They do not do any background research on the individual. And they just jump in and go, hey, this person's a scammer. Just because they don't like them. And why they don't like them is because they've got their own unresolved psychological issues, and rather than addressing it internally, they spit out this venom externally. The seventh reason is that a lot of people simply lack empathy. They just are unable to understand other people's thoughts, feelings, and actions. And so what they do is they just only think about themselves. They think about their own emotions. They lack empathy. They can't really empathize with somebody who is trying to make a living for themselves, trying to build a brand and trying to build a business. They just lack empathy. They lack the ability to apply some consideration towards the other person. And so lack of empathy will always also sometimes show up as rage. And and then the person just starts to get really angry, and they start to direct all of this anger by labeling the other person as a scammer, rather than actually internally analyzing, why am I feeling angry about this person? They're just trying to make a living. They're just trying to build a business like everybody else. The eighth reason why a lot of people want to label anyone that's doing well as a scammer is because they may not agree with their beliefs, they may not agree with their philosophy, they may not agree with their message. And so the easiest thing to do is to silence them by criticizing them publicly. And this is actually very, very wrong. Now, just because somebody is, promoting a message that possibly challenges your cultural paradigms or your spiritual paradigms or your educational or cultural conditioning, doesn't mean that you attack them. You see, the moment you are not even prepared to take on board another perspective that challenges yours, you are demonstrating that you have a fixed mindset. You can't just label somebody as scammer because another person's perspective challenges what you've always believed. Instead, what you might want to do is to ask yourself, what I actually believe, is that true, or is it just what I believe? But instead of reflecting in this manner, a lot of people would rather express their anger and hatred towards the person who is challenging their beliefs. The ninth reason why a lot of people will, spit out hatred and call people who are doing well for themselves on the internet as scammers is because people have a lot of ego sometimes. They have a lot of ego, right? And instead of putting the ego aside and opening up their mind and learning something new, what they'd rather do is they'd rather discredit anybody out there who's doing better than them. So this is a form of ego as well. The false identity You know, what it wants to do is it wants to make everybody else wrong so that you can feel right about your perspectives. Again, this is the mindset of a person who is not mentally and intellectually very evolved. And so that's why the easiest thing to do is to just label everybody a scam because I don't understand what you're doing and it's affecting my ego and I'm now getting angry. And look, the fact is that a lot of people who will actually do these things, if you look at the profile of the people who put negative comments on somebody else's, you look at the profile and you find some commonalities. You will find that in most cases there are people who are underachieving. You will find that in most cases there are people who don't have a prominent profile, they don't have any influence, and people don't really trust or respect them. So all of this inner frustration comes out when they see somebody else living the dream that they wanted to live. As Grant Cardone once said, he said, you know, you hate on me because you quit on you. And if that's the reason why a lot of people, you know, feel that it's justified for them to spit out hatred against those who are doing better than them, then you can be absolutely sure that those people are being consumed by their own ego. And the 10th reason why a lot of people will spit out hate and label other people who are doing better than them on the internet as scammers is simply because they have a lot of fear. They don't want to do what this other person's doing. They want that person's results, but they're not prepared to take the actions that that person's taking. And so what happens is, again, all of this fear comes up, and rather than, you know, taking some steps with courage towards their own dreams and goals, what they'd rather do is bring everybody else down. Now look, it's been always known throughout human history that some human beings do that. They don't want other people to succeed. But here's the problem. If you're one of those people who spits out hate, if you're one of those people who labels anything that you don't understand as a scam, you're doing yourself a massive disservice. You see, I learned a long time ago when I was young to always bless what I want. If you see somebody wealthy and you bless them, what you're basically saying is, look, I bless the wealth that you have, or I bless the success that you have, or the accomplishments that you have. The moment you attack the very thing that you want, that thing moves away from you. And so I think it's quite silly to do that. From the beginning, even when I had nothing and I was completely broke, and I had no achievements and I had absolutely no influence, I remember the times when I would look at somebody more successful than me and I would be inspired by them. I never ever hated anybody that did better than me. I always looked up to them and always said, this person must have put a lot of work and a lot of creativity, and they would have put a lot of persistence into achieving what they've achieved. You know, the fact that some people think it's absolutely justified to attack anybody that's more successful and wealthy than them is really a manifestation of a very poor mindset. A mindset that has been conditioned to see wealth and success as negative. And the thing is, the moment you start to associate negativity with all these concepts, your subconscious mind will make sure that you never make the types of decisions that will help you come into the acquisition of wealth or for you to have more accomplishments in your life. So in summary, realize that as long as there are opportunities to make money, there are always going to be scammers in every industry. But you do yourself absolutely no justice by labeling people as a scam without doing your research, without doing your homework, and without actually understanding what they do.